This is You've Already Been Hacked, recorded on
25 July 2025. Welcome back to You've Already Been Hacked. This week, well, a lot happened this week, Cowboy. Before we get into it, how is the Cyber Cowboy?
Cyber Cowboy is having a wonderful day. Thank you. And to my friend out there in the cyber world who said he can't hear me, I just wanted to take this moment to go full 90s 2 a.m. radio talk show and say, please send me your shirt.
Thank you. Little Cyber Cowboy ASMR, everybody. I'm the Professor of CyberRisk. And this week, before we get into the news, let's start off with something that really happy about. A listener wrote in and asked a few questions. So, Cowboy, I'll take question one, and then you can take question two. So, I think it's important. Cowboy has made the offer multiple times on the show, and one of our listeners took us up. So, if you do have any questions, go ahead and write into us and or comment in the YouTube vids or on the social media posts, whatever. And we'll see if we can get you an answer by the next week's episode. So here we go. What are 2 or 3 things everyone in military or law enforcement should know about cybersecurity? So my take, and I, as a good professor, I did a little background research first. Always, this is not just off the cuff. 1, cyber hygiene. I'll speak tonight, folks, is mission critical. It is the best practices like strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, and software patching aren't just IT tasks. They are your operational safeguards. If you have poor cyber hygiene, this will lead to compromises. It could compromise investigations. It could expose sensitive data or even disrupt your tactical operations and potentially impact lives on the ground. So when we say, and when you're told umpteen million times by your employer to change your passwords and make them complex and not repeatable, there's a reason for that. Do it. Don't argue about it. You can grumble about it silently, but it's for the right reasons. That's one thing. Cyber hygiene is super important. Number 2, third-party risks are real. Many, if not the majority of breaches that you're going to experience stem from a compromise from your vendors or your contractors or their vendors or contractors. Law enforcement and military units have to vet these external parties and partners and enforce strict access controls to prevent indirect compromises. Not only that, once these people are on your facilities, that's an insider threat that you have to also be aware of. It's not just your personnel. And then finally,
hold on, can I jump in there?
Yeah, please.
Right. So those who know me on social media know I did just over 20 years active duty, and I can tell you that the cyber awareness training is such a joke. It's an ongoing joke. Even in the cyber fields and community, it's too long, it's too stupid, and it's not really all that relevant. And yes, most people in the cyber career fields understand it, but and this is hard to talk about the classified level, there are a lot of things that go on in career fields that are not cyber technical that put our operations at risk. And I'm talking people plug their Apple phones into SIPRnet, into the secret systems, right?
I've got worse than that. I know of instances where Xboxes were on the JWIX network.
Wonderful, right? Like that is the baseline stupidity of things. So yes. And then I don't know if we've said it before on the show, but clear defense contractors are the #1 targeted group for cyber infiltration and espionage, going after military and or government type things. So yes, contractors need to clean up their house.
It's not just the contractors, though, right? As the government side, you folks are ultimately responsible for your networks. So by outsourcing to a vendor or a contractor, which is fine, right? Expertise is where it is, so don't not do that. You have to vet, you have to monitor, you have to. It's not shut these people out. They are part of your team at that point. in a matter of speaking, legally, contractually, there's words to use, but they're part of the team, so you treat them appropriately. But they are another threat vector that you have to consider in how you deal with. And the last thing I'll bring up to answer this particular question is cyber threats can be operational disruptors. So a cyber attack can cripple, in law enforcement, your dispatch systems. It could cripple surveillance tools or your general comms networks. These agencies need to treat cybersecurity as part of continuity planning and emergency response. It is not just a technical concern. There is
I like
too
this
much. Wait.
Yep.
Let me just say this before I forget it. There is too much integrated into cyber platforms today that is a day-to-day necessary function of how you operate. And if you aren't taking that into consideration in how you operate, you will not be able to operate when those systems go down. You will not be prepared. Go ahead, Cowboy.
Yeah, no, I like this topic because by our nature, I think we tend to focus on a lot of military stuff and not as much within law enforcement, partially because it's not our bread and butter. But thinking through this, like, imagine if a cyber actor who just wanted to cause more chaos, started disrupting dispatch or communications during the recent protests in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that
right?
would have been it would have just
a recent
complicated
example.
that situation so much more.
Yeah. So a very quick recent thing in all of our minds that says, imagine if that had happened and how much worse things could have potentially gotten.
Yeah.
So law enforcement, huge deal.
You want to hit the next question?
I got it. So question 2, is there anything we can do to deter cyber threat actors? What can we be doing in the space to maybe increase those consequences? And man, consequences, we have talked about this before. That is I think by far the hardest part of reining in malicious cyber actor. So attribution plus consequences equals deterrence. Cyber deterrence works best when attackers know they'll be identified and punished. Public attribution, indictments, coordinated sanctions raise the costs of malicious behavior. Not different than any other bad thing, right? But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we've actually seen that and talked about it on the podcast, this coordinated effort, multinational effort to bring down some cyber actors recently, right? Europol, I think, did one. Was it South Africa? There was an African country that did one. So this is happening. This is real, and it is making an impact. Maybe, and again, this is where I think Cowboy and I agree, and we feel like maybe the repercussions, the consequences for the actors is not as severe as it needs to be, but there is an impact occurring.
There is, and we're actually going to talk about that a little later in our show of another recent win in that aspect. So, but yes, it is really at a low point, which I think is why you continue to see cyber actors doing more and more. The second point, strengthening those international norms and enforcement. Countries must enforce their due diligence, meaning they're responsible for cyber attacks launched from within their borders. Diplomatic pressure and multilateral agreements can help hold safe haven states accountable. That's huge, right? I mean, there. To my knowledge, I don't believe there is any type of global cyber agreement in any way, shape, or form. At best, there's the Interpol, your kind of common countries that tend to work together, right? Even bad countries maybe, pencil whipped it, but do next to nothing within their countries, and that'd go a long way.
There was a few years back a lot of discussion on a global cyber commons, but I don't think anything stuck with that. I'm sure that the UN still promotes such a thing, and it should be promoted to a degree. But I don't think that anyone's really adhered to anything like that. It's still very much the Wild West, in my opinion.
It is. I think we have more treaties and more people follow them for space assets than we do cyber, which is kind of funny. And our last point here, invest in offensive and transparent capabilities. So the U.S. and allies have begun using offensive cyber tools, i.e. disrupting ransomware infrastructure, and publicly disclosing operations to signal consequences. Transparent cyber deterrence does help shape adversary behavior. So I think that's big, right? Attack the attacker. That is, I think that needs to go up, honestly. I think, and there's diplomatic things, so it's easy for me to sit here and say that, but I think countries need to stand up and say, look, you hit us, we're going after you. Like, period, dot. We don't care where you're at. We're gonna go after your stuff. And when they start doing that and you start seeing those consequences, I also think that's could have major impact.
Yeah, 100%. The only thing I would argue as a issue of taking a little prudence to is, if we are going to go on a quote unquote offensive, we need to really be a lot better at attribution, because we could cause a tit for tat type of escalation. And if it's nation state versus nation state, that could always end up in a much worse spot. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm just saying we need to make sure we do it deliberately and not just whack-a-mole back, because I think that doesn't lead to any positiveness. That's my opinion.
No, it has to be coordinated effort, and I'm glad you're here as the voice of reason. I tend to choose violence too often as the first point. And we, law enforcement and the general cyber community will say, like, to incident responders and companies, like, don't attack them. Like, let law enforcement and or government do their thing. Just stop what's happening and protect yourself. Do not attack them, because exactly, you could escalate, right, and be like, oh, I was just doing this I was just using your computer as a bot. You want to go at it? Like, yeah. Now I own your bank account.
Yeah. Happy to be the voice of reason, Cyber Cowboy. Always happy to be. All right. So again, if you have questions or points of interest you'd like us to bring up on the show, please write into us or hit us up on our socials in the comments, and we will do our best to get you robust and thoughtful or thought-provoking answers by the next week's episode. And with that, our top story this week is something that anyone anywhere that uses Microsoft in an office environment has likely been impacted by. Widespread SharePoint zero-day exploitation hits U.S. agencies. I would guess that this CVE hit way more than just the U.S. agencies. Hackers have exploited zero-day vulnerabilities in Microsoft SharePoint's server, specifically CVE 25.49.704 and 25.49.706. The predominant targets that we know about have been breached, they are U.S. government agencies, universities, but like I said, global businesses. The attackers deployed Warlock ransomware via malicious web shell, which was a spins or sp install 0.aspx and executed commands through the w3wp.exe process. So if you haven't patched SharePoint yet, which I can't imagine if you're a business you haven't, but if you haven't, you may want to look for those processes and those files on your systems. You might have a problem. This matters because this campaign demonstrates how quickly threat actors pivot from vulnerability disclosure to active exploitation. The use of SharePoint, which is widely deployed in the enterprise, makes this a high-impact event with rippling effects across sectors. What can or should you be doing about it? Well, immediately patch your SharePoint servers. That's it. Let's just start there. Do your patching. Don't wait. Again, CEOs, CIOs, don't care that you have a business to run. You're going to lose your business if you're using SharePoint. This is essential. Do it after hours if you have to. I don't care. Get it done. Audit for suspicious web shell activity and anomalous EXE behavior, as I mentioned, and review ransomware response playbooks and ensure backups are isolated and tested. Because if you have a backup that wasn't isolated, it's probably already infected. Cyber Cowboy, your thoughts?
Yeah, so one saving grace of this is it's right now at least only affecting on-prem SharePoint servers. It does not affect SharePoint online in Microsoft 365. So a little bit of a silver lining there. But yes, if you're big enough to have hunters, this is where you get your cyber threat intel team together with your defensive cyber operators, and those intel folks start feeding your operators all of these different files and TTPs and indicators of compromise to start looking for. Microsoft actually tracks this group known as Storm 2603. They came around just recently in about 2025 and deploying their Warlock and Lockbit ransomware. And actually, Warlock ransomware just came around in June of 25, so relatively new. I really enjoyed this. So it came around following an advertisement on a Russian cybercrime forum titled, "If you want a Lamborghini, please call me."
Oh, well, I mean, who doesn't want a Lambo, right?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with Italian. Just saying.
There's nothing wrong with Italian. All right. Next one's a little closer to something that I care about, the professor cares about, but not directly. I am an avid Linux user. My predominant system, for those that don't know, and I'm going to hear a bunch of IT people suddenly screech giantly to a grinding halt. I am a Mac user. It is okay. You can breathe. I do it for stability and content more than anything else. And I've been using a Mac as my primary since college. However, Professor has a home lab with, I don't know, 6, 7 different computers, Raspberry Pis, big custom built servers running Linux, Proxmox, Unraid, you name it. I even run Bazite on a couple devices for those that know. So I am not just a Mac head. I am multi-OSal, as they say. But this one is Arch Linux AUR package found delivering the Chaos Rat. So 3 community source AUR packages were discovered to contain malicious GitHub scripts, and we talked about how GitHub was being used as an attack vector, I believe 2 episodes ago, that deployed Chaos Rat malware. The packages were removed, but the incident highlights risks in decentralized software ecosystems. So this matters because even trusted open source platforms like Arch Linux can be compromised via the supply chain. And this, again, we warned you that this was happening, and it was sad that it was happening. And there was another event in GitHub that that was using as an exploit vector. And here's another one that is attacking at the operating system level. Chaos Rat enables remote control, data exfiltration, and persistence. So what can you do if you're using Arch? Well, validate your package build scripts before installation. Always good. Don't install random scripts. Definitely not into your production hardware. Do it in a virtual environment if you can do it, or do it in a virtualized environment on your system so that your system has a little bit of protection built into it across different modalities. Use reproducible builds and checksum verification. Always good to know that the files you are using are the files you expect. And monitor for unusual outbound traffic from developer machines. Again, knowing the noise floor of your network is essential to knowing when anomalous activity is happening on your network. Cowboy?
Yeah, so those that don't know what a RAT is, right? Remote Access Trojan. This particular malware comes with cross-platform going against Windows and Linux strains. And one of the things I like about it, even though it's bad, it's okay to appreciate good cyber things, is it launches reverse shells. I love reverse shells because it's the easiest way around most firewalls. And because I've come up against too many engineers and IT specialists who are like, don't worry, I've got a firewall up. Well, that's great. Would you like me to get around it in about 8 seconds? Right. So reverse shells, yeah, get after it.
For sure.
And yeah, it's sad to see, more of the repositories getting hit.
I mean, the professor is a avid GitHub enthusiast and supporter, and to see that this is now becoming a harder attack vector, not a hardened, but a one that is being used more frequently as an attack vector, is really disheartening. I don't know. I don't have a solution off the top of my head right now on how this could be mitigated further, except we just have to be responsive to it, and you should know what you're installing before you install it.
Yeah, if you have the ability, let me just throw this out. If you have the ability to bring it down and sandbox it and just watch it and make sure it's not doing anything funky, aside from, again, what we said is like verify checksums and all that stuff. But if you have the ability to run it in a sandbox, just and watch it and just make sure it's not doing anything funky, that's a good step to take if you have that capability.
Yeah, so one thing that I've gone to just recently, literally just finished configuring it tonight, just before the show. I have configured what's called a Forge.jo server inside the rack. This server is for me to mirror Git repositories, and that way I will be able to actually look at the full repository and have all of the information there in front of me, rather than just hitting the clone Git command on a Linux box and going to town that way. That's how I'm going to move forward with this. Now, I don't advocate that everyone needs to do that. You can set it up in Docker if you want to, and at some point we'll get to why and how to use that on the professor's education channel. But yeah, I mean, there's different ways to skin this animal, and it really comes down to you have to know what you're installing, and if you can virtualize and containerize before inside of a safe system before deployment onto your quote unquote production networks and systems, that's always a better thing to do. Okay, our next story is actually also very close to the professor, but in a historical sense, and I'll explain why as we go. Dior confirms U.S. customer data breach via third-party vendor. Luxury brand Dior disclosed a breach affecting U.S. customers linked to a third-party vendor compromise. Wow, we just answered that in our viewer's question. The attack is attributed to Shiny Hunters, a group known for targeting high-profile retail and fashion brands. Before I get to why it matters, why is this close to the professor in my history? Well, one of the earliest jobs that I attempted to after college, and maybe after my first IT job, was to go and be a senior level person inside of the IT department at Dior. Went to New York, went to the New York offices up in Midtown, and did my interview. And the guy literally said to me, "You are overqualified for this position." Well, Dior, let me tell you, if you had me there, maybe this customer data breach wouldn't have happened. So that's on you. But that's all in my past. So why does this matter? Well, like we said in answering our viewer's question, third-party risk remains as a major blind spot in the enterprise, in security especially. Even well-resourced companies like Dior are vulnerable when vendor controls are weak. What can and should you be doing as a practitioner? Well, relentless vendor security posture and contract clauses should be implemented. This is why OGCs are as visceral as they are when contracts are being written. Implement continuous monitoring for data access and sharing, and notify affected users, and offer identity protection services, because we all need an infinite supply of identity protection. Cowboy?
Infinite. So, if you don't know this, Shiny Hunters is a, air quoting, fun play on Pokemon enthusiasts, and their picture of choice is actually a shiny Umbreon. And after about 10 minutes of web searching, I knew if I asked my daughter, she would know right away, and sure enough, I just described it to her, and she immediately knew what it was, and then said, "Shame on them for dishonoring a shiny Umbreon." Don't know what the hell she's talking about, but hey, props to her for helping the Cyber Cowboy out and knowing what their picture of choice was. Well, I had one other. Oh, but there's positive, right? I said there was going to be a positive thing here. So, in a major development against global cybercrime, French authorities have apprehended several key individuals believed to be instrumental in operating breach forums, and they are executed by France's Cybercrime Brigade, BL2C, and they had online handles related to Shiny Hunters.
Nice.
So that's they had great. A couple French folks, a couple English, a couple arrested in Morocco. So some goodness there. Way to go, France.
That multinational effort kicking in again to make this happen. That's fantastic.
And I rarely will talk France up. So hey, take this win. Take this win. Good on you.
Oh, that's funny. All right. Our next story. ExpressVPN bug leaked real IPs during an RDP session. So if you're using ExpressVPN, this is for you. And this is just anytime you're using a third-party service, even if they're supposed to be secure, updates can break security. So be advised of that, right? A flaw in ExpressVPN's Windows client caused remote desktop protocol traffic to bypass the VPN tunnel, exposing users' real IP addresses. The bug affected versions 12.97 through 12.101.0.2 beta and was patched in 12.101.0.45. So check your versions. If you're behind, get updated. This matters because VPNs are often trusted for the anonymity they provide and for secure remote access, and this bug undermines that trust and can expose users to targeted attacks. So like I said, what you should be doing is you should be updating your ExpressVPN client to its latest patch version. You should reassess your VPN configurations for RDP or other sensitive traffic that you might be using if you're using a VPN service or even self-hosted or corporate. And you should be considering network segmentation and firewall rules to limit your exposure, right? Just because you're a remote admin, let's say in this example, maybe you shouldn't just have blanket remote admin access from home. Maybe there should be some segmentation there on what type of access your remote account has when logging into the corporate network.
You're just talking crazy now. Okay.
I know.
I gotta rein in the professor. Sorry for all the admins out there who just had an aneurysm. He's just talking crazy. So network segmentation, zero trust. What could go wrong? Yes, VPNs are good, but they are just one of many defenses that you put in place, and there is no golden BB. If there was, I want to discover it so that I can become the richest person, especially the richest cowboy in the world. So just stay on top of releases and news articles and things about software and things that you're using to make sure there's nothing you got to fix right away.
Well said. And mad professor might be a thing once in a while too. So I accept being reined. But yes, zero trust all the way. All right. And our last story. The new Coyote malware variant exploits Windows UI automation. A new variant of the Coyote banking Trojan uses Windows UI automation, or UIA, to extract credentials from 75 Brazilian banks and crypto exchanges. This is why the professor keeps his crypto on a self-contained key as opposed to just on an exchange.
You're not using Brazilian banks?
Not at this time. This is the first known malware to abuse UIA for credentialed theft. Why it matters is UIA is a legitimate accessibility feature that has now been weaponized for stealthy data exfiltration. This marks a shift towards abusing trusted OS components. So we have Windows losing some trust, as if that they weren't, causing some of that as their own problem. But in this case, from malware, we have Arch Linux that's being attacked. The underpinnings of what we use, not just the applications that we use on them, are now being attacked. What can you do and should you be doing because of something like this? Well, one, monitor for unusual UIA API calls and screen reader activity. As an end user, I would say the API calls are going to be a little hard for you. Screen reader activity might be something more that you can be looking for. If you're an admin, this is definitely something you should be looking for in your logs. Harden endpoints with behavior-based detection tools. These, again, is for the IT personnel side. There's not much at the end user side that you're going to be able to do there. And become an educated user or educate your users on phishing and credential hygiene, something that all of us go through in our training, but I don't think anyone really pays attention to anymore because of the level and quantity of spam that we get. Cowboy?
Hygiene. Use cyber soap, people. Come on. I don't know if it's pronounced Quixote. That might be just a cowboy thing. But keep this malware away from my cattle and my chickens, please. Yeah, so it's interesting to see new things come out, especially with as more and more automation comes into play, we kind of got to rethink how we're looking at the data flowing in and out so that we can spot the unusual traffic and the unusual behaviors going on our network. So I do love stealthy data exfiltration. I've had so many conversations about different ways that you can hide data within packets, especially if you're willing to play the long game and bring out a little at a time. People really get the glazed over look at me like deer in the headlights, like just go be a cyber dork in the corner and leave me alone. But yeah, it's real. So this is a cool story.
And that's one to grow on, I guess. Cowboy, you have anything else for us tonight?
I do. Of course, I have to take my parting shot. So attackers love SharePoint. It's like a OneDrive with admin creds. No one asks questions. So I'm your Cyber Cowboy. Stay frosty.
And I'm the Professor of Cyber Risk. That's all the news for this week, and we'll talk again soon.
If you like this podcast, share it with your colleagues and friends. Your support is how we are able to continue to make this content. Thank you.